What if your 13-year-old taught you how to live while he was dying? Carson was just 13. Funny, fierce, deeply kind, super smart. He cracked jokes about cancer, hated wearing shoes, and chose presence over pain relief so that he could soak in every moment before he was gone. In this episode of Don't Waste Your Pain, his mom, Carrie, shares their journey through grief, humor, and I promise you will laugh because she is funny, and a kind of wisdom you only find at the edge of life. And before we begin, you'll notice something. This is the only episode we film on Zoom. No studio. It's not polished. It's not perfect because I wasn't waiting. I had just heard that quiet whisper, what I call the wise one within, the one that was telling me to start a movement disguised as a podcast, to invite you into the world where people like Carrie exist. People who say yes to telling her story 2 months after losing her son. Carrie is the woman who unintentionally named this podcast, this movement, Don't Waste Your Pain. And we are so honored she was our first guest. And now, over a year later, and after 5 months of interviewing guests, after building, filming, and stepping fully into this, we finally get to share my hero, Carrie, and her son, Carson. Get ready. Here we go. What I'd love to dive into, first and foremost, is learn a little bit more about Carson.
Yeah.
And what made him, I know as a mother, you must have seen very early on how Carson had something powerful, something unique about him. Like, what age did that show up for you?
Actually, Carson, it's interesting because he literally had, from the moment he was born, just wanted to experience life. Like, he couldn't do things fast enough. He couldn't do enough things. He was just always so busy. And even as a little boy, like when he would make cards or notes or things, he wouldn't just make you like one like time, like something he spent a lot of time on. He would literally make you 20 or 30 and be like, I love you on all of them. And then he'd give you this pile of all these cards. And so now I looked back at it and go, oh, he was actually giving us cards for all the times he wasn't going to be here. But I don't think that he obviously knew in that moment. And then even at like I had told you, he wanted to donate his hair for kids with cancer. I looked it back, it was a VBS. He heard about it. He came home from VBS and said, I want to grow out my hair for kids with cancer. And I was like, okay. He was like 6 or 7. It took him 3 years. So he must have been 6 because it was like 2.5 years actually, because he got it cut just prior to him needing a gallbladder removal. And so he ended up during COVID was having all these pains. Everyone thought it was, they thought it was acid reflux. He had issues with his heart. He had issues with diabetes, like pre-diabetic, like all these random things happened to this kid. And he just seemed to experience, like he just never gave up. Like he was never discouraged by all of those things. But the gallbladder removal was literally, he was 9 during COVID. It was a whole thing. And then it was like, he's like, I knew it was more than just something so simple. And there was an anomaly with that. They had to call in special doctors because kids don't need gallbladder removals. And then it was 3 years, 2.5 years after that he got his cancer diagnosis, his first one.
Did he know when he got the gallbladder removal that it wasn't that? Or was it after the diagnosis, it was like a aha moment for him? Like, yeah, that never felt like it was it.
Well, so I know for him, like, it's just like, well, I'll go all the way back. So when he was born, he was breathing super weird. They're like, we can't explain it. So he went to the NICU at one hour, one week and 1 month old. So at 1 week old, he ended up with jaundice, but like super bad. He was eating a ton. So they were shocked by how much he was eating, but that he still had jaundice and was under lights for 3 days. And then after that, he was in it a month because he ended up having a fever that spiked. And he was just less than a month. So he was in the NICU for 2 days on antibiotics and stuff like that. And I mean, he had needles in his head. It was like a whole thing. Um, and then Carson, throughout his whole childhood, was like a very emotional person. And Hunter, my other emotional one, who's 19, he said to me the other day, he's like, you know how I used to make fun of Carson all the time for crying? He said, pardon my language, he said, that fucker's up there in heaven laughing at me because I cry over him not being here every single day.
He's like,
And I was
you're gonna take that emotion.
and I was like, I mean, that's the nature of Carson. Like he learned to deal with the hard things through a little bit of dark humor and a little bit of he was just a little angsty at times, uh but he just found ways to find things funny or backhanded comments.
I love the combination of dark and light. I really do.
Mhm.
I have the same sense of humor too. And,
Yeah.
and I think those who have dealt with death and are
Mhm.
dealing with it, you are playing in the darkness and you are gonna, you know, I love the comment. He is looking down and laughing at him. Like,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, because it's like just the balance of both. And I mean, and even like when Carson knew he was dying, he literally, when we brought in the bed, he didn't want to sit in it. He was like, I thought I was just going to die here on the couch. Like, what is happening?
Why can't I die on our couch?
I think it's because he knew obviously death was coming,
Yeah.
but he was like, I'm not ready for that. And I want to live in this moment.
Yeah. Couch is
But
this
then,
moment. The bed is the death bed.
yeah, I mean, it's just one more step. So as things progressed, like, it's just one more step. But even when they told him that the tumor was going to take his life, he was angry for like one day. He cried, he was angry, he swore a lot, got real angry, and then it was like, okay, well now what am I going to do like until then? He definitely thought he had longer, but he was just ready to go, okay, let's live what I can.
So would you say Carson was a warrior at times and a fighter?
Oh, 100%.
Uh-huh.
Um, I would say that in the fact that even as a little boy, so I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Bible, but Carson's favorite books are First and Second Kings, Chronicles, that whole era, and all of it, the entire section of scripture is all about battles.
Mm.
And the thing about King David, who is the main focus of most of the battles and stuff like that, is he was a warrior, but then he spent time in the secret place of the Lord. Like his heart was tender. And the God describes him as a man after his own heart. So even though he was a warrior, he had that gentleness and just that sweetness about him. So he had the dark and light because obviously being a warrior, you're killing people, but then you're in this other space of being gentle.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And there's that place in you when you're fighting something within you that you
mhm.
have a choice to be the warrior or to be. You start to be. And this is where my
Yeah,
question, because you said when you brought in when you brought in the bed, that is the symbol of death, right? Like you, this is the place.
right.
I'm sitting on my couch. I'm not stepping on there. My question, he is the warrior. He has that warrior. Was there a point where Carson took the warrior garbs off, that fighter, and then had a space where he shifted into just being with what is? Was there a moment of
I mean, I would definitely say probably the last like 10 or probably 10 days.
yeah,
Like because I think he knew like obviously like death was coming. But it was like at that point he just shifted to wanting to make sure everybody knew how much he loved them and how important they were and how like he just wanted them to know. He was less about like he would ask for us to pray over him, but it was more for I think just for comfort and to feel because he was in so much pain. And he would kind of argue and fight with us because he would I guess it was both really in tandem because he could have just taken medication to relax and kind of be sleepy. But he wanted to be present. And so being present meant
pain,
pain.
presencing with the pain. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I have the choice to do both, but And it wasn't till really right up to his death that um he told Ray, he was like, "Okay, I'm done." Like, and he wanted something to like relax him, and he died within 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes of that.
Wow.
So, he um yeah, he just wanted to be with his people. He wanted to be present, and so he would endure pain to be present. And then in talking with some of the other kids, he was like, "I told God that, like, I have to take this pain. None of you are allowed to get sick. None of you are allowed to do these things because I'm doing it for all of you."
And he said that at 11, if I recall,
So at
before
11, at 11,
classmates,
he
right?
had said, he said, "At least it was me and not one of the other kids." And then later he changed because he's like, "I couldn't watch them do it." Like, that's what he would try to say as he came, like, the second time he was diagnosed. He's like, "Well, I said that because I didn't wanna watch them be sick," which would really be the true nature. Because he's like, "I can endure this.
I can
I know what I'm feeling. I know what's going on right now, but if I had to watch one of you do that, I don't know how I would handle that." So I think it was both.
and from what you've shared with me, he was a master from the very beginning of being present.
Oh,
So
for sure.
so if he was a master as a child before cancer at being present, this just took him to the PhD level, right? Like
Right,
of I am now going to take the pain instead of the drugs so that I can be present with you.
right. So I
And
can get all of the moments.
yes, and there really is the power. There is power in presence, and pity is poison. I often say that,
Yeah,
right? And that's one thing I noticed when we interviewed together. There is no pity. You didn't pity. There wasn't pity in this space. It was, I am present with my child, and he is
right.
suffering, and I'm going to be there.
Yeah,
And what did he teach you? I mean, you got to experience what he never wanted to experience, which was witnessing your loved one in pain.
right. Yeah. I mean, there's actually quite a few situations, even through his whole cancer journey, where he actually didn't remember them, which was super great to me. He ended up getting Benadryl, which he was allergic to try to help combat some of the other allergic reactions. Well, it caused him to hallucinate.
No.
And he was like, he would kept like grabbing me and be like, "Mom, I need your help." And like just this terrified look on his face. And I was like, "Oh," like those were the moments where I'm like, I don't know what to do. And like sheer panic. And then he doesn't remember any of them. He was like, "Well, I don't know." He's like, "Actually, because during most of my chemo treatment, I don't really remember like a lot of the moments." Like, he remembers, like, not wanting to do it and stuff like that, but he didn't remember the really hard parts of it, because he just tried to sleep and not pay attention, I guess, but he kind of would just choose to not dwell on things that he didn't like.
Right. That makes total sense. He's gonna focus on what you focus on grows. It sounds like that's one of his
Right.
probably.
Yeah, I mean, and he did have a little bit of anxiety when it came to just life, which I kind of watched as he got older get a little bit more, like, because the anxiety came when he couldn't control, like, he tried to control school and all of those things because those were things that felt in control to him, but at the same time, we talked through a lot of times about, we can't always control things. So how do we learn to sit in the space when things are out of control and let it come, let it be okay? And so, so we had a period like when like after his end of chemo where he was a little more anxious, but then after probably as he really hit puberty, honestly, like right before his second diagnosis, he kind of seemed to be able to manage it a little better and we could talk through things more easily. But like I would have conversations with Carson that in depth that about emotions and about connection with people and stuff like that, that even some of my older kids are not there. I mean, I would say most of my kids have a pretty high emotional intelligence. His was just like
Out of this.
next level.
How did he I when you said he would cycle through the anger and it would be very quick.
Yeah, I mean, like he would hear something come, he would get very angry. Sometimes it was like like I said, he would say something, he might punch a pillow, he might like, and it was usually quick. And then he would be like angry and then go, okay, like I don't have a choice in what's happening right here. So I can get angry and then I move forward.
Yes, I call that flip that shit. Like when you are in it and you are
Yeah.
in the shit and it is hard.
Yeah.
And you are, but you have to let the anger out because there's
Right.
uncontrol like things that why is this happening to me? And why is I don't understand why is this constantly? And then flip. Like the eight does his did his anger sometimes almost lift him to catalyze him into something light? Like he'd have those moments and then boom, like he'd flip.
Yeah, I mean, he would get, like I said, really angry and then he'd flip into something else. And I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of it was just the processing. Like you hear a new, like hear information. It's like, so like he ended up getting an infection after his surgery in his leg. And it was
And
like
he lost part of his leg, correct?
well, so with his chemo, or sorry, with his original diagnosis, he actually had like his knee removed and half of his femur removed. So he had a pretty big apparatus in his leg.
Right.
So he had, and I can send you pictures of that. So after they removed that, so they had to do chemo, remove that, the tumor and everything, which included the knee. The knee actually did not have cancer in it, but in order to safely get all the cancer, they had to take it out. He kept the cap, but everything else had to go. And so he had that in. He ended up getting an infection in the incision. So that was like 4 days before we moved into our new house. And we
You're
ended up in,
moving in the middle of all of this. That's it.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And so he was like he was angry because Carson had always had FOMO. Like because like I said, he was just literally wanted to live every moment and like with everyone very present. So if he had to miss something or be second or third, he wasn't about that. So we ended up in the hospital for the whole week. And at first he was mad at me. And then he was like, okay, well, it is what it is. So I'm going to order steak every day because OHSU had steak, and he did say it was a little overcooked, but they're trying to be safe over there. And he just rolled with the enemy. He got kind of antsy towards the 6th day right before we went home and was like, this is so stupid. I feel fine. Why am I even here? He's like, I should be at the new house, like just some of those things. But then we would kind of joke and we were able to always turn things into something funny or positive.
Yes.
But that initial like having to go there and miss out, he had to grieve that and like grieve the loss, like not getting to help move and not getting to, and then we moved past it. And then he moved into the house and was fine. So I feel like he processed things so much quicker than most people.
But did the cancer diagnosis affect his spirit and his character? And how so?
Um, I think it weirdly, if anything, it kind of propelled him into an even more generous person, if that can even be,
Yeah.
I just he was always thinking about other people. Like even in the hospital, he had this aqua pad that he really liked, that when he would have some of the treatments, his kidneys would hurt, so they'd bring him this aqua heating pad. And he was there after, like, when they found out that the cancer was back the second time when they were draining his lung. He was there for 8 days or whatever. And he really wanted it, but he was like, oh, there could be other kids that might need it or want it, so I'm not even gonna ask. So it was like day 3 or 4, we asked that. He had a really great CNA who came in and she's like, stop being so nice.
Take
She's
it for
like,
yourself.
she's like, I am here to do whatever you need. Don't like, she's like, I want to be selfish. She goes, be selfish, be like other teenagers.
Yes.
And so
For
he was like,
you, for you.
I would like to have the aqua pet. Like there was like 6 of them,
Of course.
four or 6 of them just in the closet. And I was like, Carson, it's okay.
It's okay.
He also didn't want to be told no, I think. But yeah, he was always like, well, I mean, someone else might need it. I'll be fine. It's okay. Instead of just, um, you know, but
It's
I also have a video of him. So he was in quite a bit of pain in the opposite side of where his tumor was. I think it was mostly because he kept looking over to where everyone had been sitting when they'd come to visit. So he ended up with this like weird pain. And it's like, so they brought him some heating pads or like the hot packs. And so it got to the point he was using like quite a few of those every day. So it got to the point where he was throwing them to see if he could get them into the garbage can from his bed. And so that became like a game or whatever. So he was always able to find
Joy.
fun and
Yeah.
joy in any situation, in
Joy.
any circumstance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was his one of his favorite things that you shared with me, a great one. If you think about some of the moments where he was bringing joy during cancer,
Yeah.
there was something he shared with the nurses around.
Oh yeah. He said, you know what goes good with cancer? And they're like, what? He goes, a popsicle. Like something so basic, but also like they're like, what is this kid gonna say? To like, what is he gonna say?
Do you have other moments that you could think of that where he was just, and it might not come off the top of your head, but just those joy moments?
He was just a happy kid. I do have a funny story though. It's not really joyful or not, because Carson was a little mischievous as well.
Like, tell me more. We got the dark and the light. You got to play with both.
So he was probably 8. Anyways, he was playing in our Corolla, which was a 5-speed. He put
Mhm.
the brake down and took it out of gear,
Uh-oh.
and it started rolling down the hill.
Uh-huh.
And so not
Oops.
only was it rolling down the hill, this is where I'm like, this kid had angels for days, but it's rolling down the hill backwards. And I like go to grab the handle, and the handle breaks off the car because the car is
No.
locked. The handle breaks off the car. The car literally rolls back uphill, hops the curb, goes in between the mailboxes and this neighbor's tree, missing. And then I think it was like 30 minutes later, their car was where our car had been. Anyways, and so it hops the curb and then just stops. And I'm like, so the car rotated back uphill, like it went uphill and stopped. And then Carson's little just eyes are, he's just like looking at me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Carson. I was like, first of all, are you trying to kill me? And second of all, do you not understand like how like this isn't happen? And I
Well,
mean, he really came out on moved by anything, but the rest of us were.
because you've got the angels looking out, right? You have the angel moments. I also remember, if I recall, you had said that almost to the day he died, he was helping his siblings with homework. Like,
Oh yeah.
it was,
We we joke because Carson is our math teacher.
oh no,
So I was like,
it's
and so the
gonna
kids when they get frustrated, they're like, our math teacher is missing. And so I mean, and several of the other kids, like Carson would get help from Dakota, who's the oldest boy, um, for his math. But Carson's nature, as I hear even at school and stuff, he would help other kids with their math, other kids with assignments, like that kind of stuff. But he just had a way of being able to communicate, whether you were young or old. Like he was just great at communicating to wherever level you were at.
transcended. Yes.
Yeah.
And the way you speak about him reminds me of what I call the chameleon. So,
Mhm.
where you've been through so much pain, but outside of maybe missing hair, like even when I saw him days
Mhm.
before he passed, there was a glow. You knew he was sick, but majority of people wouldn't have known he was about to pass because of just the way he shows up.
Yeah.
The chameleon, right? Where
Right.
the pain is, he's so presenced with the pain, he glows. I
Right.
does that make sense?
Yeah. Um, I think that is the thing because he just embraced wherever he was at, and like when the puppies showed up, and when like Miles came and everyone was there, like he wanted, you could tell he wanted to be with everyone. He
Everyone.
wanted to be as present because remember he would have you guys give him like he'd be like, I need oxygen, so then and then he would want to be play again. Like he would just take what he needed to get to the next moment.
Oh, it was beautiful. I watched him do it. I have it on video. It
Yeah.
was so profound where he was with Miles, and they didn't even know I was videoing it, but I remember and I sent the video to you. It was
Yeah.
his the way he was looking at Miles. He knew he didn't have much more time.
Yeah.
His gaze was so present. It went to my heart.
Yeah.
And he could take the pause to get the oxygen that he needed and then back in. Like he
Right.
really could do the shit, just like shifting your car and moving it down. It's like
Yeah.
he knew how to do that life shift. And I
Right.
almost dare to say, and maybe and tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I feel like he was giving the oxygen mask to most people all the time with joy and life, but
Yeah.
in the end, he was learning how to do the oxygen for himself, taking it so that he could be as present as possible.
Yeah, I would definitely say that is true. He, because there's like I find all these little stories, and I think I had sent them to you, but like where people are like, "Oh, Carson left me a note here," or like things I didn't know about. Where most kids, most people even want credit for like something that they've done. It's just who people are, and obviously, yeah, he loved getting the straight A's, so he did love his credit. But at the same time, when it was something where he wanted to give you what I call like a love offering, he wanted to give you a piece of himself. It was not for anyone but you. And so like he had given my friend Steven some money and like a little note and put it in his card basket and didn't say anything to any of us. And the only reason I know about it is because Steven told me. And then he also was like, you sowed into the house of the Lord, like you sowed into my schooling. And so then he actually brought him more money back at Christmas time, which was really sweet. And then, like I said, my friend Carly's sister Sarah, she had helped him. They were building a project for Carly and Steven's wedding, and he wrote her a little note and stuck it in her toolbox. Um, he convinced Teresa, my best friend, who's also his best friend's mom, Michaela. He convinced her to buy him a remote control for his Xbox. And he had it engraved because he wanted a specific color, but he had it engraved so it says T is the best. So because we call her T. So I was like, even in the like, like, because he's pretty good at conning people into things as well. Um,
It's like it's all in the end for that.
yeah. And
Random acts
so,
of kindness. That's what he's great at. It's not
yeah,
it's in the giving, not even because oftentimes, like you say, people there is a joy in receiving, like in giving, sorry. Like
yeah,
you see someone, he drop it and go. Like
yes. And it's also funny because I mean, it's good and bad in the sense of some of our friends kind of struggled with like how do I be struggling when I come to see Carson because he's going to want to attend to me
mm,
while he is sick. And
yeah.
so there was especially like one of his best friends, she's like, I don't know how to like when I look at him, I'll cry. And I don't know how because he'll want to fix it. And so she kind of struggled and wrestled with that. So she would come, but then she would kind of hide away. And then and then she kind of got a little more comfortable with certain parts of it. And then Carson would get to the next stage of being more sick. Um, and so it was kind of interesting to watch that kind of play out. And I'm like, you don't have to be any specific way. You don't have to, because even like Miles and talking through like some of it, like there was a couple of times where Miles was really upset and his mom was like, um, you like you can just tell Carson how you feel. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
Like it's not gonna change the outcome, but at least he'll know, oh, this is like, you
This is
know,
yeah.
this is how I feel about you. You're like my best friend. Like I can't. So Carson had a lot of best friends. I feel like even when like you can talk to people that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s that have encountered Carson in some way, shape, or form because he did Rangers. He would go to the like the gun shows and sportsman shows, and he always knew somebody just like Ray, and he would talk to anyone, like I said, and he would get pearls of wisdom from them, and he would drop his own, and he was just they just
Old
carried.
soul.
Yeah, the old soul type where it's like, dude.
Were there certain mottos or old soul like things that he shared with you that stick that are like that's my Carson, that's what he brought into the world? I know just the theme of his presence.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, he used to say, which he towards the end was like, I hate it because people would ask him how he was, and he'd say, good, great, amazing, awesome. And then everybody kept saying that because they would ask him and he didn't have an answer for them because he didn't want to tell them. And so they would say that and he's like, I wish I'd never said that. But he said that and he would also the kind of the motto I feel like that he lived by was he was always like, let's roll. Let's roll. Everything was let's roll. And then it's more of less about what he said and more about who he is and more about like just him existing as a person and getting to watch how he interacts and watch how he behaves and just even to the very end if he would be short tempered or some of those things he would always apologize. um there was a few times even with nurses where he would get mad because he was in some pain or whatever. He'd be like kind of short with them and I was like, Kirsten, I know that you're upset and that you're hurting, but I know that you would never want to treat anyone unkind. And so he could usually flip it, but most of the time he just did it on his own. Most of the time he realized, oh, that was kind of harsh or oh, that was kind of mean or whatever. So he was always very aware of those things. And I was like, if we as humans can go throughout our lives and just look at the world and go, we have no idea what they're walking through, no idea what they've experienced. And so choose to treat them no matter what I'm feeling with
Mhm.
that kindness and that joy. And if they're, hurtful or they say mean things, we just let it go because we don't know what they're walking.
I don't know. Yes, and everybody has that human part where you break and you're angry and you project something to someone and it's not even about them, it's the pain inside, and he got it.
Right.
He got
Right.
it. He also has a master teacher mama too, I can see that. It's like it all and holding the space for it and holding the space and grace to be able to say, "I'm sorry. I see it."
Right. I mean, I've learned to say I'm sorry a lot better since Carson because um he he just knew that he didn't have the time. Like you always think, oh, like I can apologize for that later or we'll get to that later, but you don't. We're not guaranteed tomorrow.
No, and
No one is.
that's how he lived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even like I said, even as a little boy, and the my oldest son, Coda, he said, I keep hearing people and they're talking about these really stupid things like, oh, this relationship's not going that well. And he was like, I don't even know how to connect with that. He's like, I lost my brother. And he's like, what people don't understand is he's like we aren't just brothers, like we're each other's best friends. Like I don't lost like my best friend. And so they spent so much time together, even if it wasn't like personally in each other's space. They played a lot of games together and online, especially when Carson wasn't well. And then when Carson would be well, they would go airsofting and they would do all the things. But they just talk to each other pretty regularly. They're just brothers and besties.
And Carson knew that. Carson knew
Yeah.
that he was part like that. So I'm curious, did he, knowing he was going, did he have words of wisdom for his siblings that he shared with them? When, because I know one of them had said, I don't know how I'm going to live without Carson. And they're,
Yeah. I think I don't know if there's anything like specific. I just know because he was just so present. Like he was the kid from the time he was young, he would pick out a gift, a Christmas gift for every single person. He would figure out a way to make the money. He would work on our friend's farm, he would poop scoop, he would do all these things because he wanted to buy you a gift. Um, and so there was at one moment, this is where I feel like he thought he had a little bit more time than he did and wasn't quite ready to face it. And then obviously got kind of too sick to think about it. But my friends had said, like, Carson, can we look on Amazon and kind of help you pick out some gifts for your family for Christmas? And he was like, well, it's too soon, kind of thing. And so I think because that's something he enjoyed doing. So I think on that, like he probably if he had known it was quite as short as it was, that he probably would have also wanted to do that. But even up till like a few days before he died, he was still like he bought these mods for his Lego guys and bought some Lego sets and because he would have moments where he'd rally and feel better and then it would just come crashing down. And so I think he just kind of just who Carson just being present. He was very you always knew Carson was there. Like, even in the hospital, if the boys were busy or whatever, Carson would be nagging them and be like, "Are you ready to play? Are you ready to play?" Like, would would pester them until they'd play with him. So he had moments of being the little pesty brother because Dakota's 22, Hunter's 19, and Carson was 13 when he passed. So it's kind of like, there's still that little bit of age difference, um, but then they just all just, like I said, loved each other.
Everybody has their lessons. I'm curious because Carson was all of it, like such a giver.
Mhm.
Towards the end of his life, did it feel like he was able to receive like the love and in the tears, being able to be present with people as they're sad, knowing that he can't, it's him leaving that it accept, they can't.
Yeah, I mean, we did talk to him quite a bit about, how sad we were gonna be that he was gone, and we also said, like, "You're not really gonna miss us that much because like, you're gonna be doing all these cool, fun things, your body's gonna be perfect, you're gonna actually be able to kneel down again," like, all of these things. And we had a miscarriage before Coda was born, and we're pretty sure it was twins, and so I had asked him, I was like, "So, what do you think the babies are that we lost?" He's like, "Well, they better be bros." And I was like,
So he sees
I was like, "You get to meet them first." And then, my friend Laura had lost a baby, Evelyn, she was 16 weeks, and she had passed away this last year. And Carson and her next up sister, were like thick as thieves. Like, I have pictures of Amelia riding around on Carson's lap while he's rolling his wheelchair around, all the things. And so we talked about he was going to get to meet Evelyn, and he is big. Like, he was a little like said, he's like, I when I die, I was like, no, like, I don't know anybody that's already there. And I was like, oh, I didn't really think about it other than like, because he didn't actually meet either of them. He just knew they were going to be in heaven already. But like, he didn't, like, none of my grandparents have died in his lifetime.
wow.
My grandma and grandpa all died. Well, my grandpa died when I was in high school. My grandma died when Dakota was 8 weeks old. My other grandpa he never met, and then my great grandma who he met, who absolutely loves him. She has Alzheimer's now, but she was here for his first birthday, and he was like eating this peach and his face was just covered in peach. And so she would be like, I just remember when Carson was eating his peach. Well, then she, in her dementia, thinks his name is Chester now, uh, but still.
I
So
love
we
it.
would joke about Carson being called Chester to him. But so he doesn't like, he didn't have anyone
That
so
he knew. So
that he knew.
you could tell him your grandparents.
Yeah. And so he was like, I didn't have anyone that he knew. Like,
That's
so what that part was a little bit scary, but Carson also has always been like the kid that will go into a space first. Like, he would open the door, and then like he would let either open the door and let you in, but he was always that like he was really good at setting atmosphere. Like, I was like, once he passed away in the house, I was like, I didn't realize like how big. Like, Carson's presence was big,
it is.
but
We felt
I didn't realize how big, because I feel like there was a lot of times where he would bump up against, because I believe that every living thing, like you can feel like, even people tease me because I'm like, well, I was like, I don't want a dog or a cat right now. I was like, I don't want their presence in the house. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, because like, if I'm there and then they're moving around, they're a lot, like, they're a presence.
they
So
are
I was like,
100%.
if I think I'm fully alone and then something comes walking in my presence, like, I know. Like, if there's a raccoon in the backyard, or
I know.
we were camping and a cougar came and walked through the tents. I woke up. Ray woke up. The dogs woke up. My friend's dogs woke up, but like didn't do anything. You could just tell, like, we knew there was a presence.
Mm,
So I was like, but I was like, I did not realize how large
yes.
his presence was until he was not.
What has his absence of that physical presence brought you? In the absence, there's an emptiness.
Right. Well, it's a weird grief is a weird thing, because it's like one moment you're like, okay, I'm doing things, but obviously everyone desires to not be forgotten, right? I mean, that was one of his things. He didn't want to be forgotten, which I think is also why he did all those little things that he did throughout his whole life. Um, but it's been more like, you're doing something and then all of a sudden it's like a rush of sadness. And then there's moments where it's like, okay, I'm gonna do this like a little better because Carson's not here. He doesn't get to experience this. Or we ended up going to the beach one day. I was like, I'm super busy. I don't like I have stuff to do, but I looked at the weather. I was like 73 degrees at the Oregon coast is a beautiful day. Sunny and 73. If it gets much hotter than that, it gets kind of muggy and too hot, right? So I figured out whatever kids could go and we went, and even Tanner, who he was gonna stay home, and then he changed his mind. And I was like, oh, even Tanner's like, okay, like I can't get this moment back. And so it's just like like going, okay, I'm gonna make specific things memories
Yes.
and make sure that I like am in those moments. But then on the negative side about it is like I'm very aware that we have no more doctor's appointments. I'm very aware like how frequently we were doing things for Carson, even because it just felt like it was the rhythm.
It's part of
I mean, because I would take him to school in the morning, he would walk home. So I don't even obviously I don't take him to school anymore. And then also he was just whatever you were doing. Like if you're cleaning, he was gonna help you clean. Especially if he knew that he'd been playing games too long. He was like, ooh, I would be, and then he also would tell me, he's like, "Well, I just did the chores and stuff because I knew that I would get more game time." And I was like, because you'd find him randomly out there in the yard doing stuff. And I was like, you can pretend whatever you want,
Yeah.
but like we know that it's both and like you are want to be helpful. Or if he noticed that Ray was working more, then he'd want to mow the yard or do some other extra things without even being asked, or he'd unload the dishwasher, or he would um, just do those things. He was very protective of me. If the kids were being disrespectful, he'd be like, "Don't disrespect my mom," and and
Taking
stuff
care of
like
mama. He took care of
that.
everyone. And taking care of the kid. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so there's like those things that are very obvious. And I think one of the days that it was like super hard was we had a canoe in the front or in front of the shop. And Ray was like, I'm gonna move this to the back of the shop. What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. And I just started sobbing and he's like, what is wrong? And I was like, well, this was something Carson would have had an opinion about, even though it was something so stupid.
You could hear his opinion,
Like,
right?
yeah, and he would have been like, "Oh, yeah, we should do that. That will give more room for this." And he's like, "Oh," and then he would have been, "Let's go, Dad," and like helped him move it, right? So I was like, "Oh my goodness." And then I know Ray has his ups and downs too. I actually got to go to the cemetery for the first time on Sunday by myself
Wow.
because because like the kids were always with me or Ray was always with me. So I was like, I'm gonna go by myself because I just need to like talk at Carson.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was actually really nice. I just cried and like had a moment and kind of shared thoughts. But when I take the kids and stuff, Colby and Sage will tell Carson, oh, the new Fortnite, whatever it is that they Fortnite I don't know, download or whatever is this, or where they went or what they did. Sage brought him some sand from the beach and just kind of like the little random things. But I will say in his death and spending time at the cemetery and seeing people who come, it gives you this whole other perspective of life because I feel like we as a society go, here's life and death is over there.
Right. Not it's an absolute continuum. It's not separate.
Yeah, and so it's like I feel like even in our specific culture here in the United States, because
Right.
other cultures do it a little bit differently, and I
Mhm.
feel like better in that. And so I feel like Carson can do as much in death as he did in life, right? So just sitting there and kind of taking in like what people are doing and like how they're honoring loved ones, like Carson in a way did something that only Carson can do through dying. And it was softening all of us to be like not afraid of the death part, but like going, "Oh, it's part of the whole story." It's like people just everyone gets so excited about, "Oh, we're having a baby," and then you have life,
Yes.
and then it's like death's over there. When
Yes.
Carson passed away, this also back to like the question about how Carson was handling things. It was like he literally waited until all his brothers were here. His bestie Teresa T was here. Dakota's girlfriend Catherine, who he adored. She's been his girlfriend for 5 years. I didn't know Catherine super well, like because I, as a mom, try to protect my heart because we've seen boyfriends come and go, girlfriends come and go, and I'm like, I can't do it. It hurts my heart too much. So I put up a wall for quite a while, and then life just happens. But like getting to walk through this process with Catherine, she's such a beautiful human. Like she held him when he was dying. Like everyone had taken turns because the day that he was dying was, you could tell it was something was coming, right? And so Catherine was here. Teresa and her oldest daughter Reese, who's one of Hunter's best friends, was here, and then all the siblings. And it was literally um it was like chaotic. Carson thought he needed to go to the bathroom, and then he's like, I'm gonna black out. They ended up getting him back to the bed. And the funny part about it is that Teresa was doing laundry at the exact moment, and I was in the garage with Hunter at the moment that he passed. And at first I was like a little frustrated, but I was showing Hunter a note that Carson had written me. So we were in the garage. I was looking at that, and Tanner comes over to the door and opens the door, and he's like, "You need to get in here right now, Mom," in the most serious face. And I was like, "Okay." And Ray had gotten Carson back from the bathroom and got him onto the bed. And he helped him onto the bed, and Carson rolled on his right side, which he hadn't been on his right side in, I don't know, months, because he couldn't breathe. So he had rolled onto his right side. Ray said like maybe 10, 15 more breaths, and that was it. But everybody was in here.
Mm.
And and then it was just everyone cried, obviously. They held each other. Even the siblings that don't prefer each other. Tanner actually hugged everyone and sat with everyone. And then Carson had a specific blanket that we had laid over him that he had had through all his chemo treatments. And Hunter's like flung across it, right at this moment, flung across it, and just ugly snot crying. Like there's snots like all over it because Hunter doesn't know how to contain anything. It was like, I understand now why people say, "Oh, they went peacefully surrounded by their loved ones." And I'm like, yeah, that you can't really say anything other than that. But there was just such a peace and such just like a calmness, even though everyone was crying and all of the things like. And then they obviously hospice came, talked like did the heartbeat, made sure he had actually passed, obviously. And then we actually kept him overnight, and he was just here in the house, which I didn't even know that was a thing. And Ray was like, "No, he's not leaving tonight." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know that you could do that because basically it was very like I didn't have a lot of people die, so
Yeah.
they were more removed. Or I had a friend in 8th grade who was killed in a car accident who was really devastating for me, but like I never saw her. I never, like so you just showed up at the funeral and whatnot. But so it was so comforting and so um having him he Carson gives permission for a lot of things. Just him as a person gives permission to feel, to be, I don't know, like so one of my best friends, Carly, who I had talked about before, has known Carson since he was 18 months old. She came and the next morning, so I had messaged her, I was like, "Hey, Carson passed away, whatever." So she came the next morning, and she just immediately like walked over to him, like climbed on the bed and just kissed him, hugged and kissed him. And she's like, "I would have never expected to do that." But it's like there's just something about Carson who gives permission.
Mm.
And so she's like, it just felt like what I would do. Like it just felt normal. And for me, I said, I'm so glad that you were like comfortable enough to do what you would just do. Because that's Carly. And and so it was just such a sweet moment. And then Miles came. I messaged his mom and was like, "Hey, it's totally up to you guys. but I don't want, because Miles has spent all this time with him, I don't want him to not, if he needs to, like, yeah.
See.
And so I was like, I'm gonna leave it up to you. And so she went and got him from base or football practice and was like, hey. So then Miles came and it took him a minute, and I was like, you can touch him, like you can touch him, you can and he wasn't sure, and so he ended up touching him, but it's like if you just want to rub his head, and obviously by morning he was cold or whatever, but it was way more beautiful than I ever expected in so much ugliness, I
Yes.
guess, and there was like 2 or 3 other ways that he potentially could have passed that would have been horrendous. And so it was none of those things. And Ray was able to keep promises to Carson. Carson didn't want to be in the hospital anymore, so we brought him home, which was scary for me because I was like, "Oh no, like what if this happens and I need like
Yes.
what if
Mama needs help.
I was like, because there was the potential that his artery would rupture, there would be blood everywhere, that he would have a heart attack, like all these things. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? It's like, and so Ray handled a lot of like that kind of stuff, but Carson hated needles. He never had to have one more needle. They had given us medications that if he started to go into cardiac arrest or if he started to do this, that they could give him to basically sedate him, like all of these different things. He didn't have to do any of those things. Like everything that he would have wanted was able to happen, right? Other than obviously more time. But so there was all of those peaceful pieces of that. Um
Granted. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so we did do an open casket for him, um, just for, like, my mom to come and stuff like that, and some other people, and then, like, Michaela, who was really struggling to see him because that was his best friend. I mean, we've gone on tons of family trips. Carson that last year had me help him make, Carson's short bestie, Michaela's tall bestie sweatshirts, like, she's wore hers out. Um, they just thick as thieves. And Carson, one of the things she said was she's like, well, Carson was supposed to go to the high school because he's a year older than her in school, but only the 3 months older than her. She was like, he was supposed to go to high school and kind of pave the way for me,
Yeah.
like to go before me. So she's like, what am I gonna do now? And so her and Miles have talked some, and Miles also confessed, he's like, if you go through Carson's room and you find like a journal or something that I signed that I would beat up this kid with Carson for Michaela, I did sign it, it's true, like or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would not even be worried about that. But yeah, so she actually ended up being able to come to the viewing, and Carson had given her a best friend necklace. And they were 2 hearts, and one of them said, um, "We're best friends because everybody else sucks." And so I know when he bought those, he thought he was gonna wear the one that said, "Because everybody else sucks." But no, his is the other one that says, "We're best friends," or whatever. So I thought it was funny because I'm sure, knowing Carson, he let her pick, and she obviously picked the other one. When she was having a really hard time with him passing away, like, she couldn't even, like, look at me or see, like, she was outside with her mom, and, I brought Carson's necklace to her,
Mm.
and she went and hid in her room when she saw us pull up. So I walked upstairs into her room, and I was like, she's just
Yes.
sobbing because she didn't want anyone to see her crying, and I said, "Hey," I was like, it's okay to be sad. You can feel all the things that you want to feel. I said, I brought you something. I said, I brought you the necklace um, for you to give back to Carson when you're ready. I said, the viewing's on Friday. We talked for a minute. She was like, okay. And so then she decided that she wanted to come. She originally wanted to be in there alone with him and then changed her mind, and she just wanted me to be in there. She didn't want to touch him, which was fine, but she said some things to him. She just was in there, and then she had me put his necklace in his pocket. And so it was just kind of it was just really redemptive, just Carson kind of thing. And like, I'm sure that he felt or that like he would want her to feel it was okay that she didn't come sooner, you know. They did go out for pie. That's the his friend that he went out for pie with, you know, before he passed. And the day that he passed, she actually wanted to make a picnic and bring it over, but we saw the text after he had passed away. So that was kind of a bummer. But that's my friend Teresa's daughter. So Teresa was here. The other funny thing about Carson, so they came to pick him up in the morning. They had us all go outside because Ray was very he'd made Carson some promises, and one of them obviously was dignity.
Yeah.
And so he which is Ray's where Carson gets a lot of his strength as well. I mean, I know I'm a strong person, but Ray also has a lot of strength. And he had us all leave because they had to move him from the bed to the stretcher, and sometimes bodily fluids spill out, you know, all of the things happen. And so he was like, he wanted to be protective of that. Carson had some severe bruising on his stomach that had actually started a couple days before. So we actually don't really know what actually killed him. Whether it was just that his kidneys ruptured or something like that, but there was bleeding down low. And so Ray was just trying to keep that all intact. So anyways, they get him in the body bag, but they were very sweet. They left it open. So when they put him into the van, it was like, so he comes rolling out of the house, and the way he had fallen asleep like on his side. So his body had been on his side the whole night. So they got him like moved onto the stretcher. So he comes around the corner and he's like smirking. And his face is got a smirk on. And Dakota goes, he goes, I was fine till that fucker started smiling at me. Like that stupid smirk on his face. But when he was in the viewing, like his face was straight and all the things. But it was just
For you all for the end.
yeah, it was just a funny thing. Just very Carson, just a very Carson thing to do. And I think that's where Dakota was like, man, I was just fine. Because
It is a journey where you are taking Carson's body and he's leaving the house. So I was very curious in that he is leaving with a smirk, absolutely to a T.
yeah,
Carson, he is leaving with joy. Like,
yeah.
is your last picture of him leaving the house.
Yeah, it was just like this. He was always so sarcastic and such a and like I said, the dark humor, sarcasm, like and so it was very like, oh gosh, Carson, what the heck?
Light, darkness and light.
Yeah. And so it was like, oh gosh. But
Wow.
yeah, so because they had kind of given us like, how do you want him to leave? And I was like, I never thought about it. And so obviously we were lined up out front, but it was just he comes around that corner and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Was his face smirking beforehand, or it literally shifted?
I think it shifted a bit because when he was like laying on his side, like he was just kind of laying there. But because like when they like them, I think they moved him a little bit, and so it was just like a side curl, like kind of just it just looked like a smirk. And I was like, but when he was in his casket and everything, he was just straight faced. It was so it was like what the heck. Um, we also had got all of the boys matching shirts. They all have a button-up shirt that's Star Wars because I was like, I don't want to bury this kid in a white button-up shirt. Like I was like, that's just not Carson. So it's a Star Wars button-up and he has shorts on and no shoes. I was like, that kid did not want shoes on, no socks. Like so he looks like business up top and
Party on.
comfy down below. Yeah, comfy on the bottom, but and then we we played the Imperial Death March when they took the casket out of the church because well we were joking about it. And then the our pastor's actually very he's more of a sports guy, but one of the other pastors, one of the campus pastor, Nathaniel, and Carson nerded out for quite some time when they came to visit the hospital about Star Wars and all the things. Like Carson and Nathaniel knew like depth of Star Wars that most people don't know, right? So they were just like being total nerds about it. And so, anyways, we were sitting with the pastor that's more of a sports guy that doesn't know as much about stuff, and we said something about it, And then we like end up talking about some other stuff. There's this long, long pause. And then Jonathan goes, I think we can make that happen. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, that Star Wars song.
Yes.
He's like at the end, he's like, yeah, I think we can make that happen. And they actually have a camera that goes all the way around the back wall, like out, you can see in the lobby. So um we just they all wheeled him out. It was quite something, but I feel like Carson would have thought it was funny. I'm sure. I My mom's never told me how she felt about that, but that's okay.
Hey, was this a Carson did Carson ask for this? Like, did he plan out how he liked his
No, he didn't want to talk about these logistics.
No, he
Like
didn't. Interesting.
no, he didn't. We didn't ask a lot of questions. I know he and Ray had conversations about certain things more. Like Ray went and dressed Carson
Mhm.
before they put him in the casket and everything. Ray did all of those things because he was like, obviously when they did the embalmist would have seen him naked, but it was very, he's a 13-year-old boy. They either want to show it all or show nothing. It's you have
There's not really in between.
There's not really an in between. So yeah, so Ray went and did that because he was like, so they had told things. And then I wrote a letter for Carson's funeral. I couldn't read it, but I had Carly read it. And then Ray stood up and talked at his funeral. But um he was like, I just, because he had a lot more times in the dark of night with Carson.
Mm.
Because I would usually go up with the little kids and then Ray and Carson would stay down. And they had a lot of conversation, but like one of the most important things for Carson was to know how much everyone meant to him.
That is so profound. I'm curious, knowing that this is something no mother ever chooses to go through.
Right.
I was wondering, did Carson share anything with you, or was there anything that happened in the last moments that like held your heart so that you could let him go? Because I can imagine as a mother, I mean, you see the pain, so you don't want them to be in pain, but my God, you don't want to let them go at the sake. What was
So we spent like quite a few nights obviously sitting. This was before we even had moved him downstairs and we were talking and whatnot. And Carson, he wasn't afraid to die. Like like knew he was going to heaven. And so I think knowing that piece of it, that he knew for certain where he was going, like, and he wasn't afraid to die, he was just afraid of leaving us. Like he just didn't want to leave us and he had so many things that he had planned. And so like I knew it was coming, so it's this weird coming, but I just think it was, he made sure that I knew how much he loved me. He was constantly kissing me on the cheek and all those things, but like I think he knew from a lot younger that he wasn't gonna live long.
yeah.
And so it was kind of like when it happened, obviously it's like shocking and you have days it's like you're going through your day and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, my son died." Like,
Sunday.
like you're most of the time it feels like, "Oh, they're at school or they're this," and so then it's like and then it hits you. And yeah, so I don't know if there's anything that would have really prepared you for other than just kind of the knowing of it. And, I mean, he really just tried to make sure everybody else was comfortable in it.
And him giving permission for everyone to be, and when he did die, the amount of emotion and crying that actually was released,
Yeah,
he was giving everyone was to give the permission to be exactly what you
yeah,
experience. I felt that in what well, everybody is there.
right. Well, and I think there was the moment, like, you couldn't have held it back.
Yeah.
I don't think that you could have been in that space and held anything back because he had literally given up his life was gone.
His life was
So it was like it's like it extracted everything out of you and you didn't have a choice not to be.
and there do you find that there was a beauty in that release and in those tears when you felt everyone fully in release? I've witnessed a mother screaming of losing her child, and
Yeah.
a moment of a power of full expression, like the healing of being able to fully release.
I think it's interesting though, because when like my friend Teresa, who was here when Carson passed, I was with her when she got the phone call that Natalie was killed in a car, like killed by a car. And that scream that you're talking about, that that gut wrenching, I will never forget the sound of her voice
Yes.
because it's a very specific sound.
Yes.
And I feel like I don't really feel like I had that like sound. It was more of just
Yes.
because we knew it was coming, it was more of it was a release of like, I know he's not in pain. I know he's not all of these things, but I also know like we are all feeling the exact same thing at this exact same moment
That's
where in most situations, like you can be in a room with someone, they can be experiencing joy, like everybody can be experiencing different things, but in a space where someone has just passed, like you are literally feeling the same thing. um and so it's like this weird connection that you will not connect with anyone else unless through that experience. So I understand why people, I was always like, how do people decide to be in hospice? How do people, and then I look and I go, oh, there's a certain beauty in parts of that um
yes.
that you can't experience anywhere else.
Yes. There's a and you nailed it, the unifying, knowing that the gift of knowing that they're going to die versus a traumatic death and
Mhm.
surprise that scream, which I know.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's the different types of death and the different types of grief and how it looks and what
Right.
you described the the journey all the way to his last moments. It's what you said. He gives permission for you to feel, and everyone feeling it in the same moment together. It's
Right.
for you
Oh, for sure. Like it was,
healing.
because we did get to have the moments of grieving because you're grieving from the moment they tell you they're not going to live. Like there's all these things. Like, we have hope that there's supernatural healings because I've seen them. Right. I know all of those things, but it's like you also can't live in denial of what is right in front of your face. So it's like there was, we had stages of grieving. Um, I call it pre-grieving. But like we were able to get really angry and able to do certain things. But most like I haven't like I never got to an angry place. I'm more just disappointed. Like disappointed in the loss, right? So I can't, and we were able to say a lot of things. There's always more that you wish you would have said or more that you wish you would have done in certain things, right? But like we were able to have the conversation so that Carson knew how loved he was. Where there's a lot of situations where someone dies tragically and they don't.
That's
Like
correct.
you could have had a fight or you could have had this or could have had that. Um, I do think it like in his dying that there's two brothers that did not get along at all and they're actually spending time together now. So
So powerful. I think, can I ask you just a couple more questions,
yeah.
knowing that we have parents who will be listening to this who have a diagnosis that is terminal? Uh,
Mhm.
what what got you through? No, like the moment where you find out there's nothing else we can do. There's nothing else we can do. Is there anything that you would tell someone who's new on this journey
Right.
in that diagnosis?
I mean, I think for me, because I have such a strong faith in the Lord, I can honestly say that if I didn't have faith in God, like I'm not sure
Yeah.
where I would be, honestly. I think I I just kept clinging to that hope and like prayer and like my community of people who were praying for us would check in on us, kind of those things, and then just really being present and going, you know what? Like don't stress because in the end you're going to be like, I wish I had more time, no matter how much time you end up having, right? So it's like and you don't have to do all these big grandiose things, right? It's like even in just sitting and watching, like we sat and watched Wicked Tuna, or we sat and did little things and had little conversations and just really try to take in the everyday
Yes.
and just the simple things and take more photos than you think you should. Cause I'm like, cause I was like looking back and I'm like, you will never get new memories once they pass.
Mm.
So, I look at and I go, all the pictures and all the videos and all the things that I have are all that I ever get this side of heaven. So just take all those in, take the photos, take the videos, play the games, do all the fun things, but just be in the moment
Yes.
is really all you can. Again, Carson, but
Yeah, back to Carson. And I also get the sense that I've spoken with people who are dying where they say sometimes hope hurts, where the family is just like, let's keep imagining that this is gonna like, or there's hope
Mhm.
or the miracles, but it actually hurt the person who's dying more.
Right.
Anything you have thoughts on that for parents? Maybe not even aware that they may be hurting, right? The
Right. I mean, I think the thing is Carson and we did talk a lot about the fact that um sometimes the healing isn't this side of heaven.
Mm,
So the hope is yeah, we want healings here, but at the same time, like you're not going to disappoint me. Like I'm not going to be disappointed by you
yes.
if you die. Because I think I can see where there's this like pull of, you know, the person who is the sick person wanting to do what they can, but they're going to ultimately, if they die, feel like they disappointed their family. And I don't feel like Carson ever felt like we would be disappointed by him. And so we had a point where we were hoping and praying that he would be healed because he was healed once, right? And then when you really look at the big picture, I'm like, oh my gosh, like if we hadn't gotten the diagnosis when we got it the first time, we wouldn't have gotten this year and a half. So even though there was all this tragedy in between, like even though there was like the tragedy here and then the tragedy here, there was still some really cool and special moments in the midst. And so like we knew, we all knew. And I'm like, we transitioned from praying for healing, for praying for peace and comfort over him. It's okay for you to hope and pray at some point, but there's definitely a point where you're like, this isn't going to go the way I want.
Mm,
So I'm gonna pray in a way that's gonna comfort them
mm,
and spend my time on focusing on how to let Carson know how much he means. How do I let, like, or let that child or whatever the person know how special they are to you, know that this moment's okay. And then saying to them, hey, like talking about where they're going, talking about what happens afterwards.
and it's okay
Um,
to let it go, and you don't have to stay in the pain.
yes. Cause
There's
I mean,
permission.
yeah, I try like because I know he wasn't fully ready to go, but so we talked about it more from a perspective of like, heaven looks like this. Or there's the like, and so we talk about things in heaven. We talk about the people that I knew that were there, like different things.
Mhm.
And so, but I never specifically said like, when you die, blah, 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 like that kind of stuff. But there was definitely a change in how I approached what was going on. And then reassuring them, like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy the time I have with you. Making sure that they know how much they're loved by you and focus less on the healing piece because I could see how that could be hard.
Yes, totally, and, another question, for the people who are around you, right? The
Right.
friends, the family who are not, intimately right there with you, so kind of external family and
Right.
friends and external friends. What were some things that were really helpful, and what were things that, "Gosh, I wish they didn't do that. I know they're doing this. They're trying to be kind, but"
Right. I
what were
think the thing that is not helpful
tell us.
is is when everyone sends you, like, all these other ways of healing.
Tell
Like,
I
there's, like, 2,000,000,000 things, like, you should, like, try this or try this or try this, and I'm like, it's not that those things don't necessarily work, but usually by the time you get I mean, there's probably different degrees of terminal illness, but, like, from the time that Carson was told he was going to die until the time that Carson died was less than 2 months, right? So, even they had offered us a specific, a chemo. Well, it's something that it's not really a chemo, but it's like a kind of like a chemo, but it was a pill that had all these side effects that potentially would help with shrinking the tumor, but then it would, like, overrun it and could give him some extra months, but it would have potentially been cause him nausea, and when I actually read through all of it, it could cause immediate death, like, there's a billion things it could cause.
know.
And then there was another chemo they said they could do, but it wouldn't shrink the tumor enough to make it operable. It wouldn't do certain things. He would be nauseous in the hospital for a week at a time, but most likely, at least in that week off, he would have ended up in the hospital because his numbers would have been he would have spiked a fever and his counts, all these things. So then, after we went on our one trip and we went in to see the doctor, one of the things the doctor told us each separately, he said, if you had started either of those medications, it wouldn't have changed anything. He said, I would have done the exact same thing as you did if I was in your situation. He's like, this tumor has grown so quickly that those things wouldn't have slowed it down. And so, like, I knew as Carson's mom when the first one was brought to us, that which was the medication. I was like, okay, maybe we'll find it, but they kept being delayed. And I was like, that's weird. And then we got a call them saying, okay, yeah, we can start this chemo because they originally didn't offer it to us. We can start this chemo. He has to come in on Mother's Day. He'll be there all week. Well, we were supposed to leave like 4 days later to go to Bethel and do our whole California trip. And something in me felt so angry. And I was like, this feels like a distraction. This feels like it's taking us away from where we wanna go. Like, I was like, because all of the things that I'm reading, all the things that I'm hearing, and we have a friend that's a hospital pharmacist, and we spoke to him. His son actually has the same sickness as Carson, but he's about 9 months ahead of him, and he's doing really well, so that's really awesome. Um, we talked to him about side effect all the things, and I'm like, I just don't think this is what Carson wants. And so he would do those things if he felt like we wanted him to, or if he but it wouldn't have added any quality of life.
It
And the
sounds
result was the same.
like you use that the wise one within, as I would say, the mother instinct,
Yeah.
the intuition to just gauge and then move forward where, yeah,
Right.
it's
And then they had even asked Carson, like, after we got back from our trip and they found that the tumor had grown so much, they said to him, they're like, so they talked to him, gave him options, and he's just kind of sitting there. And I said, do you believe that your dad and I are going to do whatever we believe or whatever is right for you? Um, and he said yes, because it was just too much. Like, he didn't want to see the images, and Hunter didn't want to see the images of the tumor. And Hunter goes, it won't change anything. And Carson didn't need to see them either. He's like, I can feel it, so I don't really need to see it. I was like, yeah. So I think it's the opinions and the all the extra advice. Um, unless the advice is more of like, how can I support you? Or how can I, like, because
question.
everyone, unless you're in the situation, you actually don't know, and every single person's situation is entirely different, even if you've walked through some of the same things before. And so it's like, not having an opinion or a cure or a fix, just, choose to be present, write an encouraging note, send a text that says, "Hey, I love you." Um, and it's okay to not and they just need to be okay with not responding, right? If you don't have time to respond. But at the same time, like, I know that everyone's intention is because they want the best for you and they want to help you and but like sometimes all that extra stuff is noise. It's
Yeah.
like a distraction from being present.
So your list to not become noise is be present,
Yeah. be
Send love.
present, send love, like a love note, small love notes,
Yes.
gift cards for, like, don't bring meals. Send Uber Eats or something like that.
Oh,
Meals
send
are
money
send
packets.
gift cards, something. I mean, because
Packets.
every single person in my family eats differently, and
Well,
everybody wants to bring you beans. And none of the kids like they're like, "Oh, I can make this with beans." And I'm like, "No one in my family eats beans." Or they're like, "What do your family like?" You tell them. There was a couple people I let bring food because they're very
they know.
like they knew specifically. But like I feel like it's way more convenient in those moments to just send, like, if you want to do food, right? Gift cards for like restaurants that can, you can either pick up or someone can bring, or Uber Eats, something simple that the family, whenever they're ready, can get it. The meal
Yeah,
trains are fine for babies, but
I hear you. Oh, that is so good. Don't
it's
bring beans, get cards. Cards.
yeah, gift
Yes.
cards, because now it's actually just as expensive to make a meal as it is,
No kidding. It's insane.
or whatever. And even when the family doesn't respond, it's okay. Keep checking in, but just in a gentle way of like, "Hey, how's it? How are you?" All of the things. And as a parent, of someone who's got that terminal illness, it's okay to tell people no. It's
Oh,
okay to say, "No, thank you." It's okay to not make everyone comfortable, because there's this balance of like, I want people to feel comfortable while your life is unraveling, right? And I mean, I'm sure there's some people it's not, but like in our like, we're trying not to be too Carsony in this section of saying like it's okay to say no, and people need to be okay if someone says no to them, or someone
right,
has a boundary, or someone has, because it's like this is the only time that I have left, and I don't know how long it is.
right.
So I'm going to be in this moment.
You are gonna focus on your family and Carson. That's it.
Yeah. And if you have, like we had some friends that are really important to Carson. Carson liked people being around. So we allowed a lot of people in. And then as we got closer, it was just less and less people until, that like the people that would be intimate in a space, because things can get really ugly. So what would like who would the child want
Yeah.
to see them in, because Carson was still very lucid the whole, like, up till he passed away, where I know sometimes depending on the sickness you kind of go in a different direction. So I would say, based on conversation with Carson, like, even if the child that you have, it ends up in an unconscious situation or something like that, just be mindful of like, would this child actually want these? Do they know great Aunt Ruthie? If they don't know great Aunt Ruthie, she don't need to be there.
Yes. Oh my
Like,
god. Yes.
like, you don't have to appease everyone else. Like, you only have this time with this person.
I love it.
And it's okay to hold it tight. And it's okay to, um,
And
you
isn't that a lesson in life for the living, in
yeah,
boundaries and what takes
yes,
energy and gives energy and just it
yes,
all circle, just that's what elevates. That's what
right.
aims you. I'm curious because I'm not sure if this has happened yet because it's been fairly recent since Carson died, but I am curious about this. When it comes to meeting people for the first time, a stranger might come up and or at a party or you're
Yeah,
talking because I've had this happen many times as I'll say, "Oh, is that your first child?" And they said, "No, my first child died." And without skipping a beat, I say, "What is their name?" And I usually use present tense because I know that they miss the
yeah,
present. What is their name? And then they tell me, and then I ask like a little more question, and then there is an ease with it because there is no pity. It's just presence with what is,
yeah,
and I've heard multiple people say thank you because they I want to share about my person, and
yes.
I'm curious for you, have you had the moment yet where a stranger says something like, "Oh, how many kids do you have?"
I mean, it's funny that you say that, because like the how many kids question, Teresa and I have actually talked about a lot, because obviously she lost Natalie. And so she had 6 kids and now she has 5. But she's like, so I mean, I feel like I take it into, depending on the situation, do I have space or grace to explain or
Yes,
not?
yes.
Um, And sometimes, and it just, like I said, it honestly depends on my mood, but, um, I mean, I will always say I have 7 kids,
Yep.
and some people will leave it at that, and others, and depending on the situation, I might just say Carson's age. If I want to get into detail about him passing away, I will. There's been a few times where I've been through Starbucks, like, "Oh, what are you doing today?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to the cemetery." Like, I'm like, I don't, how do you, like, like, I'm like, I've gotten to the point where it's like, I don't, like, sometimes I'm like, okay, I can be like, "Oh, I'm fine," but most of the time I'm like, I can't lie to your face anymore. Like, I'm like,
When
"Oh,
you
I'm,"
said going to the cemetery, what was the reaction to the
yeah,
person?
they're usually it's like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Oh, my son passed away, he was 13," like, and I've said, I try to make it to honor him, but to the also in a weird way, like, comfort them, and hopefully in those moments of going, I hope you think about it. Not that I want you to think about what you say to people in the sense that, like, you're just trying to be kind, and but like, your response to people in, like, when someone delivers news like that, because most of them end up like going, "Oh," and then they like go do something because they like don't know what to do with it.
What is the best response you could get from someone, a stranger, if you just mentioned that?
If
What
I
would
just mentioned that I was headed to the cemetery,
yeah,
um I mean, it would be fine to say, be like, "Oh," like, because I said I'm heading to the cemetery, my son passed away, is even just saying, "Oh, like, when did he pass away?" Or whatever. Just even acknowledging it as opposed to, like, trying to pretend like sidestep
right,
it. Because it's not something that needs to be sidestepped. It's that person's current reality,
yes.
just as if I'm going to a concert. Like at Trader Joe's the other day, it was Sunday. The girl was like, "Oh, do you have any fun plans after this?" And I was like, "Well, I'm going to the cemetery to visit my son." I was like, "I stop in here often to get flowers because your guys' flowers are a decent price and you're close to the cemetery." And she's like, "Oh," and she didn't know what to say. And I felt like even in the like that is like I want it to be okay. Like, it's okay to go to the cemetery. It's okay to acknowledge that someone died. But like I said, we've gotten super weird about it.
Yes, because death is one of the taboos, as we were talking about, kind of
Yeah.
shoved around. One of the things I often will say to people if someone says that a child has died, especially child, because it gets even harder
Yes.
child versus, someone else, is I'll s what were they passionate about? And then that usually lights up the other person. They're thinking of a
Yeah.
positive moment of their child, and then
Right.
I say goodbye. I hope you have amazing connection, at the
Right. I will say I did go to a funeral this last weekend. I told you I was going to a funeral. So, my oldest boy Dakota went to school with this boy Matthew. His mom and I were on PTO one time. They were on the same soccer team, all the things. Well, her husband passed away. Both his parents are still alive. And his brother and sister shared at the funeral. But um, my first person that I went to after the end of the funeral, which I had never met, um, his mom, and I just walked up to her and I said, "Hey," like I said, "I know we don't know each other," but I said, "I'm so sorry that you had to bury your son." I said, "I buried my son this year," and I said, "There's nothing like an ache of a mama." Because I was like, obviously a spouse feels a certain thing, but like moms are never supposed to bury their children. And even though he was like 60 years old or 58 years old, his mom is still alive. And you get to, I watched the daughter during the funeral, the service, kind of rub her mom's back and kind of, and I was like, because my boys did that during Carson's. And so it was kind of like, it was very healing for me in the sense of like being able to go, "Oh, I know your pain," to someone else.
I see.
And she was like, "Thank you." Like, you could tell, like, it was like, like, I'm not alone because, like, there's a lot of people in that room that didn't experience burying a child.
That's right. One of the pop moms that I know, shared with me as her child was dying that, sometimes pain has a purpose, and
Yes.
your pain ended up having some purpose for this.
Right.
Is literally like I see you, I hear you.
For sure. We always say don't waste your pain. So, like,
Yes, oh, I
if
love that.
because some people get weird about it, but I'm like, what
Yes,
connects people better to one another than pain? Because You can get happy with someone, but if you think about it, when do people cry out to God? When do people look for connection? Most of the time, it's when they are in pain. They've had a friend hurt them, they're sick, they've, lost a job, like all of those things. And then those are the connection pieces of where you relate to humanity and you go, oh, like you have experienced something painful. I'm going to come beside you because you're not alone. I've done it too. You can do that with cheerful things and like, oh my gosh, our teams both won, great. But most people will connect better with someone who's experienced the same pain or sadness as they have, or regret or disappointment. But it's that weird negative piece that when you connect with someone can actually bring light and joy into them because it's like, oh, I'm not alone.
Oh, this was so beautiful. Thank you. You are the light within darkness. I am telling you, Carson, as well. I so appreciate this time, your honesty. I truly believe that light moves through transparent beings, and
Yeah.
you are
Well, thank you. I feel like you can't, like, it's actually a lot harder to not be transparent. I think it's a
yeah,
lot harder to try to hide it all in.
stuff it. Yep. Yeah. As Carson says, gives permission to be who you are, and I can see who
Yeah.
his model was. Carson showed us that grief isn't just about tears. It's about cracking jokes in the middle of them, giving until your last breath, and refusing to miss a moment. Maybe it's okay to laugh at death, because Carson did. And in doing so, he taught us how to live. Thank you, Carrie, for being one of my heroes.